What happens when the person you humiliate ends up being the only one who can save you? In the dazzling, high-stakes world of New York's elite, where the size of your bank account dictates your worth, Selena Covington reigned as a princess. She possessed it all. Designer clothes, a trust fund worth millions, and a deplorable habit of treating service staff like they were beneath her. Her favorite target was Ariana, a reserved waitress at the city's most exclusive restaurant. Little did Selena know, Ariana's quiet demeanor was merely a facade, and the woman she so readily sought to belittle was about to become the only thing standing between the Covington family and complete financial collapse. The Crimson Scepter wasn't just any restaurant. It was a carefully constructed fortress of exclusivity perched on the Upper East Side. Its walls were painted a deep, opulent burgundy. The lighting was meticulously calibrated to ensure everyone looked their absolute best. And the reservation list? A who's who of New York's most powerful individuals. To work there, you had to be invisible, precise, and utterly silent. Emmy Vance, known within those walls only as Ariana, was a master of all three. For the past 6 weeks, she had flawlessly embodied Ariana, the new waitress who never made mistakes, who refolded napkins with geometric perfection, and who never, ever spoke out of turn. Her uniform, a pristine black high-collared shirt paired with impeccably tailored black trousers, was always spotless. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, concealing the true cost of her last haircut, which exceeded the monthly salary of her current position. She was observing, always observing. She watched Mr. Du Bois, the general manager, a man practically buzzing with anxiety, as he bowed low to hedge fund managers and fawned over socialites. She watched Javier, the head bartender, whose hands moved with the grace of a concert pianist as he mixed $80 cocktails, his eyes reflecting a deep, simmering cynicism. She watched the kitchen door, noting the average 2-4-second delay in plating appetizers. This restaurant was her latest potential acquisition, and it was failing badly. It was a Tuesday, typically a slower night, but the Scepter was never truly slow. At 8:03 p.m., the front doors swung open, and a frigid gust of Frederick Malle perfume announced their arrival. Selena Covington. She wasn't just a diner. She was an event. Flanked by her two equally vacuous friends, Tinsley and Brent, Selena surveyed the room, not as a guest, but as a predator assessing its prey. Her dress was a shimmering, silvery creation that undoubtedly had a name only accessible to the fashion elite. Her blonde hair was so bright it seemed almost weaponized. "Table 12, Miss Covington," Du Bois murmured, already sweating profusely. "I wanted table 7, Selena snapped, not even bothering to look at him. "The lighting is better for my content. Table 7 is occupied by Senator Phillips, ma'am," Du Bois whispered, his voice laced with desperation. Selena let out an exaggerated sigh, a sound designed to convey maximum displeasure. "Fine, but I want a bottle of Sassicaia decanted before I even sit down, and send over the quiet one." She pointed a finger, adorned with a blood-red, 3-inch nail, directly at Emmy. "Not the one who smiles too much. Her teeth are yellow." Emmy felt the eyes of the entire staff on her. She retrieved the wine, her movements fluid and graceful. She presented the bottle, uncorked it with practiced ease, and began the careful pour into the crystal decanter. "Ugh," Tinsley muttered, already filming for her Instagram story. "Look at her uniform. Is that a stain?" Emmy froze imperceptibly. She knew her uniform was perfect. She had personally inspected it before her shift. Selena leaned in, her eyes gleaming with malicious delight. "Oh, Tins, you're right. On the cuff. How disgusting." She looked up at Emmy, her expression one of feigned horror. "You're serving a $1,000 bottle of wine, and you have, what is that? Gravy? On your sleeve?" Emmy looked down. On the very edge of her black French cuff was a minuscule speck of dried polenta, likely transferred from clearing the previous table. It was smaller than a freckle. "My apologies, Miss Covington. It will be rectified," Emmy said, her voice a calm, even monotone. "Rectified?" Selena laughed, a high-pitched, grating sound that cut through the hushed atmosphere of the restaurant. You're walking around serving the most important people in New York, looking like you just crawled out of a dumpster. Do you know how unhygienic that is? I could get sick. Brent chimed in, eager to add to the humiliation. Seriously, Ariana, it's called a washing machine. Or can you not afford one on whatever they pay you? The other tables were beginning to take notice, their conversations dying down. Mr. Dubois was hovering nearby, his face ashen. Emmy simply kept her eyes fixed on Selena. Will there be anything else, ma'am? Yes, Selena declared, her voice dripping with entitlement. I want a new server. And I want her. She gestured dismissively at Emmy. To pay for this bottle of wine for insulting my appetite. It's contaminated now by her filth. Miss Coington, that's... Dubois started, his voice trembling. Are you questioning me, Dubois? Selena's voice dropped, becoming even more menacing. I could have my father buy this entire building and turn it into a parking garage by Friday. Do you understand me? Get her out of my sight. Dubois turned to Emmy, his eyes pleading. Ariana, please go to the back. Just go. Emmy didn't flinch. She placed the decanter carefully on the table, gave a short, perfect bow and walked away. As she passed the bar, Javier caught her eye, his expression a mask of pure, controlled fury. She gave him a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of the head. In the staff locker room, she didn't bother scrubbing the cuff. Instead, she took out a small, leather-bound notebook from her locker and made a note. Item 1, S. Coington, extreme liability creates hostile environment. Item 2, MGMT, Dubois, no spine, sacrifices staff for high-value clients. Item 3, general operations compromised. She wasn't angry. She was calculating. This was data, and Selena Coington had just become a very interesting data point. A week passed. Emmy continued her shifts, the stain incident having marked her as a target for Dubois, who now scrutinized her every move, desperate to appease the Coingtons. Emmy, meanwhile, had finished her initial audit. The Crimson Scepter was hemorrhaging nearly $80,000 a month. It was overstaffed, its kitchen waste was astronomical, and Mr. Dubois was comping meals for influencers like Selena, who provided zero actual return. Her firm, Vanguard Equity Partners, was ready to pass on the acquisition. The numbers were simply too dismal. But Emmy wasn't finished. She had a theory about the building's lease agreement, and she needed to remain on the inside to prove it. On Friday night, the restaurant was electric, buzzing with energy. Every seat was filled. Emmy was balancing a heavy tray, carefully navigating the narrow space between the bar and the main dining floor. She was carrying 2 filet mignons and a $450 bottle of Chateau Palmer for a banking couple at table 9. She never saw Selena coming. This time, Selena was with a new group, even louder and more obnoxious than the last. She was walking back from the restroom, holding her phone aloft as she recorded a video of herself, pouting at her own reflection. And so I told him, if it's not a Richard Mille, I'm not even. She wasn't looking where she was going. Emmy, seeing the collision about to happen, tried to pivot to avoid the inevitable. But Selena, lost in her own self-absorbed monologue, walked directly into Emmy's side. The impact was catastrophic. The tray tilted precariously. Emmy's professional instincts kicked in, and she managed to save the plates from crashing to the floor. But the tall, elegant bottle of red wine was not so lucky. It toppled, striking the edge of Selena's table and shattering on the marble floor. A wave of dark, expensive wine washed across the floor and directly onto Selena's pristine white, custom Elysia Raichi snakeskin boots. The music seemed to stop. The entire restaurant went silent, every conversation abruptly ceasing. Selena looked down at her feet. She saw the splash of dark purple staining the white leather. She saw the broken glass scattered around her. Her face, which had been arranged in a flirty pout for her phone, contorted into a mask of pure, reptilian rage. You, she whispered, her voice shaking with barely suppressed fury. Emmy was already on her knees, gathering the larger pieces of glass. My sincerest apologies, ma'am. It was an... You did that on purpose? Selena shrieked, her voice cracking with anger. And this time, the entire room was her audience. You ruined my boots. Do you have any idea what these cost? These are one of a kind. You clumsy, stupid. Ma'am, it was an accident, Emmy said, her voice firm but low. An accident? You think I'm an idiot? Selena's phone was still in her hand. She turned it on Emmy, who was kneeling on the floor, surrounded by wine and broken glass. She hit record. This, Selena narrated, her voice dripping with venom, is what happens when they let incompetent children work in fine dining. Look at her. She probably can't even pay her rent, and she just destroyed $15,000 boots. Mr. Du Bois was scrambling over, his face ashen. Miss Coington, please. We are so. Shut up, Du Bois. You're firing her right now. I want her fired. Immediately. Of course. Of course, Du Bois said, yanking Emmy to her feet by her arm. Ariana, go. You're done. You are done. Wait, Selena commanded, a predatory glint in her eyes. Not yet. She moved her phone closer to Emmy's face, invading her personal space. Emmy looked directly into the lens, her expression unreadable, betraying nothing. I want her to apologize, Selena said, a smirk playing on her lips. I want her to apologize for being a clumsy, useless stain on your establishment. Emmy looked at Du Bois. He was trembling, his career flashing before his eyes. Apologize, Ariana. Just do it. Emmy turned her gaze back to Selena. The phone was mere inches from her face. I apologize, Emmy said, her voice perfectly level. For the damage to your footwear. And, Selena prodded. And for what else? And for ruining your evening. Emmy added, her tone neutral. And for being a worthless idiot who can't do her one simple job. Selena supplied, her voice laced with triumphant cruelty. A flicker of something, not anger, but pity, passed through Emmy's eyes. She said nothing. Say it, Selena hissed, her face contorted with rage. Emmy remained silent. Her silence was louder than any shout, a quiet act of defiance. Fine. Get her out of here, Selena screamed, her voice echoing through the now silent restaurant. And I'm not paying for my meal. And you, Du Bois, are paying for my boots. I'll have my assistant send you the bill. She turned, her wine-stained boots squelching with each step, and stormed back to her table, where her friends were already howling with laughter, re-watching the video on Selena's phone. Du Bois shoved Emmy toward the kitchen. Get your things. You're fired. I don't care what your excuse is. You are finished. Emmy walked into the locker room, the sound of Selena's mocking laughter echoing behind her. She didn't change out of her uniform. She simply put on her coat, picked up her bag, and walked out the back door into the alley. Javier was there, leaning against the wall, smoking a cigarette. That was something else, he said, taking a long drag. You okay, Ariana? I'm fine, Javier. He can't fire you for that. It was her fault. I saw the whole thing. It doesn't matter, Emmy said, looking up at the sliver of dirty sky visible between the high-rises. He already did. So what now? He asked, his voice filled with concern. Emmy pulled her phone from her bag. It wasn't a crack-screen iPhone. It was a military-grade encrypted Sarin Labs device. She typed a single message to a single contact. Now I buy the building. Monday morning, 9:08 a.m. The 72nd floor of 1 Vanderbilt. The offices of Vanguard Equity Partners were a testament to silent, terrifying wealth. The floors were polished Italian marble. The walls were glass, offering a God's-eye panorama of Manhattan. There was no art, only monitors displaying global market data in a soothing green font. A black Maybach S680, gleaming like a predator, pulled into the private underground garage. A man in a simple, perfectly tailored black suit, James Thorne, her head of security, opened the door with practiced precision. Out stepped Emmy Vance. The waitress bun was gone, replaced by a sleek, sharp brunette bob. The black uniform was gone, replaced by a steel-gray Armani pantsuit and black Louboutin heels that made a sharp, decisive click on the marble floor. Her only jewelry was a Patek Philippe watch, its value roughly equivalent to the entire annual payroll of the Crimson Scepter. She was no longer Ariana. She was Ms. Vance, the enigmatic and ruthless CEO of one of the most powerful private equity firms in the world. She didn't walk, she swept. Employees parted before her, murmuring, "Good morning, Ms. Vance." She didn't acknowledge them, her attention already consumed by pre-market reports on her tablet. She entered her corner office, which was larger than the entire Crimson Scepter dining room. Her CFO, Benjamin Shaw, was waiting for her, holding a cup of espresso. "Good morning, Emmy," Ben said, handing her the coffee. "You've been out of the office. How was the sabbatical?" Ben was one of only 3 people on Earth who knew about her undercover audits. She'd started doing them after inheriting the firm from her father, convinced that their data was sterile and they'd lost touch with the ground floor of their assets. "Productive," Emmy said, taking a sip of the espresso. "The Scepter is a mess. Operations are toxic, management is weak, and their prime clientele is a P&L drain. We're not acquiring the restaurant." "Good," Ben said, visibly relieved. "The financials were a dumpster fire, so we're done with it." "No," Emmy said, sitting behind her massive, impeccably organized desk. "I want the building 818 Madison. Run the numbers on the shell company that owns it. The lease the Scepter has is disastrously below market rate. The real value isn't the restaurant. It's the real estate. Buy it. The whole building. Emmy, that's a $400 million play just to, what? Evict a restaurant to acquire a prime asset? Ben, the restaurant is just a bonus. Its lease is up in 60 days. We buy the building, we renegotiate, or we gut it and lease to a Chanel flagship. Do it." "All right, I'll get the team on it." Ben hesitated, shifting his weight. "There's something else. Pitch I've been holding. It's high risk, but the upside is enormous. The Covington Tower." Emmy's head snapped up, her attention fully engaged. "Covington?" "Yeah. Martin Covington, the real estate mogul." Ben pulled the file up on the room's main screen. A sleek, futuristic skyscraper filled the display, its lines sharp and confident against the skyline. It's his passion project, a new billion-dollar mixed-use residential tower on the Hudson. It's beautiful, but he's in trouble. "Go on," Emmy said, her voice flat, betraying nothing of her inner thoughts. "He's over-leveraged. Classic Covington. He funded the base construction by taking out bridge loans against his other properties, including the Covington Grand Hotel. But he hit a snag, union problems and a permit stall. The project is bleeding cash, and his loans are coming due. The banks, JP Morgan, Goldman, they've all shut their doors to him. He's toxic. And he's coming to us." Emmy summarized, her mind already racing. "The lender of last resort. He's desperate, Emmy. He's asking for a $200 million capital injection to finish the project. In return, he's offering a 40% stake in the finished tower." 40%? Emmy mused, her fingers tapping lightly on the desk. "He is desperate. The man doesn't give up 4% of anything." She stared at the picture of Martin Covington on the screen, a silver-haired man with an arrogant, self-assured look on his face. Then she pictured his daughter Selena, her face twisted in rage, filming her humiliation. "Ben," Emmy said, a slow, cold smile spreading across her face. "I'm very, very interested in the Covington portfolio. Get me everything you have on him, his debts, his liens, his personal assets. I want to know what brand of toothpaste he uses." "You got it." Ben hesitated again. Well, his daughter is handling the initial outreach. She's his new head of brand relations or some nonsense. She's been aggressive, pushy." "His daughter?" Emmy's smile widened, a predatory gleam entering her eyes. "Selena Covington? That's the one. You know her?" Emmy leaned back in her chair, looking out over the city she was about to conquer. "We've met. Set the meeting, Ben, for this Friday, and book the main boardroom. I want them to have the full view. The next few days were a blur of numbers and legal maneuvers. Emmy, back in her element, moved with terrifying speed and precision. While her real estate division, operating under a proxy LLC, began the quiet, aggressive acquisition of 818 Madison, her finance division tore apart Martin Covington's financial life, exposing every weakness and vulnerability. The report Ben Shaw delivered on Wednesday was damning, painting a picture of impending collapse. "It's worse than we thought," Ben said, his face grim. "He's not just over-leveraged. He's on the verge of default. The Covington Grand Hotel isn't just collateral for a loan. It's collateral for 3. The $200 million he's asking for isn't for construction. It's to pay the interest on his existing debt, so he doesn't lose his entire empire. He's insolvent." Emmy stated it as fact, not a question. Effectively, yes. He's been projecting strength, faking financials, moving money between shell corporations. It's a massive house of cards, built on lies and deception. The only thing holding him up is his name, his reputation. The second one of his creditors calls his bluff, the whole thing folds. "Who holds the primary note on the Grand Hotel?" Emmy asked, her voice sharp and focused. "That's the interesting part. It's not a major bank. It's a small private credit fund out of Delaware, Ashwood Capital." Emmy recognized the name. "We've done business with them before. They're sharks, ruthless but small. They're probably terrified to be holding a note this big and this toxic. They'll want out." "My thoughts exactly," Ben said, nodding. "Then buy it," Emmy ordered, her voice leaving no room for argument. "Pay them 100 cents on the dollar. I want that note in our possession before the meeting on Friday. I want to be the bank." "Emmy, that's a $150 million note. If Covington defaults, we are stuck with a hotel in a collapsing portfolio." "He will default, Ben, and we won't be stuck with a hotel. We will be stuck with his entire empire secured by the note." "Done." Ben nodded, already typing commands into his computer. "One more thing. Selina Covington has been calling nonstop, practically blowing up my phone. Oh, she's unpleasant, demanding to speak to you directly, insulting my assistant. She seems to think she's doing us a favor by letting us invest." "Put her through," Emmy said, a glint of anticipation in her eyes. Ben patched the call to her desk speaker. "Ms. Vance's office. Finally, this is Selina Covington. Is this her? Is this the elusive Ms. Vance?" "This is she," Emmy said, her voice like polished ice, devoid of warmth. "Good. Look, I don't know who you people at Vanguard think you are, but my father is a very busy man. This meeting on Friday, we need it to be earlier, and it needs to be at our offices. We don't travel for meetings." Emmy let the silence hang in the air for a long, pregnant moment, allowing her words to carry their full weight. "Miss Covington, we are a $3 trillion asset management firm. Your father is a defaulting debtor petitioning us for a bailout. We are not investing in you. We are deciding if your assets are worth seizing." The line went quiet. Emmy could practically hear the narcissistic rage short-circuiting on the other end. "How? How dare you?" Selina finally sputtered, her voice trembling with fury. "Do you know who I am?" "I do," Emmy said softly, her voice laced with a subtle hint of amusement. "You're the woman who wears $15,000 Elysia Raichi boots, white snakeskin." "Oh, they were white, weren't they?" A sharp intake of breath on the other end. "What? What did you say?" "Friday, 3 p.m. Our offices. If you are 1 minute late, the offer is rescinded. If you call this line again, the offer is rescinded. Your father's entire legacy depends on your ability to show up and behave professionally. I hope, for his sake, you're capable of it." Emmy disconnected the call before Selina could respond, cutting her off mid-tirade. Ben just stared at her, his mouth slightly agape. "What in God's name was that?" "That," Emmy said, a hint of steel in her voice, "was due diligence." Meanwhile, back at the Crimson Scepter, Emmy's firing had sent shockwaves through the staff. Javier, assuming Ariana was now destitute, had started a collection for her among the staff, scraping together what little they could spare. He called the number she had left him, a gesture of genuine kindness. Hey Ariana, it's Javier. Listen, we all know what Du Bois did was wrong. We collected about $600 for you to help with rent. I know it's not much, but Emmy, sitting in her Maybach on the way to a banking gala, was deeply touched by the gesture. Javier, that's incredibly kind, but I can't accept it. Please give that money to Chloe. I know her son is sick. Chloe? How did you? I just know, Emmy said, a knowing smile playing on her lips. Please do it for me. And Javier, thank you for being a good man. Good men are in short supply. She hung up, her resolve hardening with each passing moment. The Scepter and Martin Covington were a cancer, a malignant force spreading through the city. But the people, Javier, Chloe, they were the assets, the valuable components that deserved to be saved. And she would save them. It was Friday, the day of reckoning, the culmination of weeks of planning and careful execution. Emmy had one last piece of the puzzle to move into place, one final detail to address before she could set her plan in motion. She had arranged, through the new building management, her own proxy of course, a mandatory emergency staff meeting for the entire Crimson Scepter team. The meeting was scheduled for 2:30 p.m. The location, a conference center on the 44th floor of 1 Vanderbilt, her building, her territory. At 1 p.m. Emmy was not in her office, surrounded by glass and steel and the trappings of her immense wealth. She was in a small, nondescript rented apartment a few blocks away, a place where she could shed her CEO persona and slip back into a familiar disguise. She was Ariana one last time. The waitress uniform felt like a costume, a relic of a past life, but a necessary one. She had to be absolutely 100% certain of one last thing before she could move forward. She walked to the Crimson Scepter, not through the back alley, where the garbage bins overflowed and the rats scurried in the shadows, but through the front door, the grand entrance usually reserved for the city's elite. The lunch service was in full swing, the dining room buzzing with the murmur of conversations and the clinking of silverware. Mr. Du Bois was stationed at the host's stand, greeting guests with a forced smile and a palpable sense of anxiety. When he saw her, his face went from purple to white, his eyes widening in disbelief. You, what are you doing here? I fired you. You're trespassing. I'm calling security. I left my locker key, Mr. Du Bois, Emmy said calmly, her voice steady and unwavering. I'm just here to retrieve my belongings. There's nothing for you here. You are no longer welcome. I'll have security escort you from the premises immediately. You are causing a scene. Daddy, is that her? Emmy's blood ran cold, a wave of unexpected surprise washing over her. She hadn't anticipated this particular complication. Selena Covington was at her usual table, but she wasn't with her vapid friends, Tinsley and Brent. She was with her father, Martin Covington, the man whose empire she was about to dismantle. It was a pre-meeting power lunch, a final attempt to project an image of confidence and control before their carefully constructed facade came crashing down around them. Martin looked stressed, his face etched with worry lines, nervously shuffling papers while Selena looked bored and petulant, until she saw Emmy. That's her, Daddy. That's the one I told you about. The one who assaulted me with the wine. Can you believe she's showing her face here? Martin Covington looked up, annoyed by the distraction, his patience clearly wearing thin. He saw Emmy, a simple waitress, a nobody, a mere distraction from the fact that his carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down around him in less than 2 hours. Du Bois, get her out of here. Immediately. We're trying to conduct business. Her presence is disruptive. Yes, Mr. Covington. Right away. I'll handle this personally. Du Bois grabbed Emmy's arm, his grip surprisingly strong. Wait, Selena said, a cruel, slow smile spreading across her face, illuminating her features with a predatory gleam. She was still seething with anger and resentment from Emmy's earlier phone call, furious at being spoken to in such a dismissive manner. And here was a target, a convenient scapegoat upon whom she could unleash her pent-up frustration. Here was the person she could blame for all the stress and anxiety she had been experiencing. You, Selena said, standing up and walking purposefully toward Emmy. her high heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. "You're the reason I've had a terrible week. My boots are ruined, irreplaceable. My father is stressed, on edge. And it's all because of little, insignificant people like you who can't do their jobs properly." She was close now, standing only inches away from Emmy, her expensive perfume overpowering, filling Emmy's nostrils with its cloying sweetness. "I had you fired, dismissed like the trash you are. Why are you back? Are you here to beg? To plead for your disgusting little job? Are you that desperate?" "I'm here for my key," Emmy said, her voice calm and unwavering, her eyes locked on Martin Covington. He refused to make eye contact, his gaze fixed firmly on the tablecloth. He was clearly embarrassed by his daughter's outburst, but even more terrified of confronting her, of challenging her entitled behavior. "Your key." Selena laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that echoed through the dining room. "You don't deserve anything. You have no value. This city belongs to me." She looked around, energized by the captive audience, reveling in the attention she was receiving. "You know, all week I've been dealing with this other horrible woman on the phone. Some icy bitch named Vance who thinks she's so important, so powerful." Emmy's expression did not change, remaining perfectly neutral, betraying nothing of her inner thoughts. "And you're just the same," Selena continued, her voice rising in pitch and volume, becoming shriller with each passing word. "You're all just help, meant to serve us, meant to be invisible, silent, and obedient. You exist only to cater to our needs." She picked up her water glass, which was full of ice water with a lime wedge bobbing on the surface. "You look warm, Ariana. You look stressed. Here, cool off." And with a quick, disdainful flick of her wrist, she threw the entire glass of ice water directly into Emmy's face, the contents of the glass arcing through the air like a glittering projectile. The restaurant gasped, a collective intake of breath rippling through the room. Ice cubes clattered to the floor, bouncing off the hard surface with a sharp, distinct sound. Water streamed from Emmy's hair onto her face, blurring her vision, and dripped down the front of her black uniform, leaving dark, spreading stains on the pristine fabric. Martin Covington's head shot up, his eyes widening in alarm. "Selena, my God. Not here. Not in public. What are you doing? Have you lost your mind?" "Oh, shut up, Daddy," Selena snapped, dismissing his concerns with a wave of her hand. She deserved it. She had it coming. Selena turned back to Emmy, who was standing perfectly still, not flinching, not reacting, not even blinking, the water streaming from her chin like silent tears. "Now," Selena hissed, her voice dripping with malice, "you're trespassing and you're wet. Get out. Get out of my sight. Get out of my city." Mr. Du Bois, utterly horrified, started to panic. "Security, security. Remove this woman." Two large security guards employed by the building stepped forward. But Emmy simply looked at Selena. She gazed at her with a chilling, profound calmness. Then she looked at Martin, who finally met her eyes. He saw something in her gaze that made his blood run cold. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was assessment. "Thank you, Miss Covington," Emmy said, her voice smooth as silk but sharp as shattered glass. "You've just clarified the final item on my agenda." She turned, not even waiting for the guards, and walked out the front door, leaving a small puddle of water shimmering on the marble floor. Selena, feeling triumphant, went back to her table. "See, Daddy, that's how you handle problems." Martin Covington just stared at the door, a knot of pure dread tightening in his stomach like a vice. He had a 3 p.m. meeting with a lord, and he suddenly had a very, very bad feeling about it. 2:30 p.m. 1 Vanderbilt, 44th floor conference center. The entire staff of the Crimson Scepter was assembled. They were confused, angry, and all dressed in their work uniforms. "What is this?" Chloe whispered to Javier. "Why are we in a skyscraper? I'm missing my son's doctor's appointment." "I don't know," Javier muttered, scanning the room. "But look, Du Bois is just as clueless as we are." The manager was pacing back and forth at the front, wringing his hands. The new building ownership had said it was a mandatory meeting, something about a transition. The doors at the front of the room swung open. A man in a sharply tailored suit, Ben Shaw, walked in, flanked by 2 lawyers. "Good afternoon," Ben said, his voice amplified by a microphone. "Thank you all for coming. We are from Vanguard Equity Partners. As of 9 a.m. this morning, we are the new owners of the 818 Madison building. This meeting is to discuss the future of your employer, the Crimson Scepter." A wave of panic rippled through the room. New owners. Were they all about to be fired? "Please," Ben said, holding up a hand. "All will be explained. We have a presentation. We're just waiting for our CEO to join us. She's finishing up another meeting. Please just watch the screen." A large monitor at the front of the room flickered on. It showed a live feed, but it was just an empty chair. An empty chair at the head of a massive, polished boardroom table. "What is this?" Du Bois demanded, his voice cracking with anxiety. "We have a dinner service to prep for." "Your dinner service," Ben said smoothly, "is cancelled. 2:55 p.m. 1 Vanderbilt, 72nd floor lobby." Martin Coington and Selina Coington stepped out of the elevator. Martin was pale, dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief. Selina, however, was still riding high from her lunchtime victory. She was scrolling through Cartier's website on her phone. "I don't like this, Selina. That woman on the phone, your stunt at the restaurant." "Daddy, relax," Selina said, not even looking up. "You're the great Martin Covington. You're just here to pick up a check from some equity gnomes. We're in charge. Now, if I get this panther bracelet, do you think it's tacky?" "Ms. Vance's office. This way," a stern assistant said, her voice echoing in the vast space. They were led down a long marble hallway. The silence of the office was unnerving, almost oppressive. They were shown into the main boardroom. The view was breathtaking, overlooking Central Park. Ben Shaw was already at the table along with 3 lawyers. "Mr. Coington, Miss Coington, thank you for coming. Please have a seat. Miss Vance will be right with you." "She's late," Selina noted, tapping her Rolex impatiently. "On the contrary," Ben said, looking towards the door. "She's right on time." The boardroom doors swept open silently. In walked Emmy Vance. Her wet hair was gone, replaced by an immaculate, powerful bob. Her soaked waitress uniform was gone, replaced by a deep blue Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than Selina's car. The Patek Philippe on her wrist gleamed. She walked to the head of the table, her Louboutins making the only sound in the room, a sharp, rhythmic tapping on the polished floor. Martin Coington didn't recognize her. He just saw power. He saw his potential savior. Selina, however, saw something else. Her eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. She tilted her head slightly, a subtle gesture of disbelief. She looked from the power suit to the sharp haircut to the face she had just thrown water on. Her own face went completely deathly white. The blood drained from it so fast she looked like a fragile porcelain doll. "You!" Selina breathed, the word barely audible. Emmy ignored her, sitting down at the head of the table. She looked directly at Martin. "Mr. Coington, thank you for coming." Selina shot to her feet, knocking her chair backward with a loud crash. No. What is this? What are you doing here?" She turned to Ben, her voice rising in hysteria. "Is this a joke? Are you the secretary? Get me a coffee, a real one, and get out. The adults are talking." Ben Shaw stood up, his face impassive. "Miss Coington, may I present the CEO, founder, and principal owner of Vanguard Equity Partners, Miss Emmy Vance." Martin Coington's jaw dropped open. He looked at Emmy, really looked at her, and he suddenly remembered the waitress in the restaurant. The eyes, the unervingly calm demeanor, the water dripping from her hair. "Oh my God," Martin whispered, slumping back into his chair, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. He finally understood. This was not a negotiation. It was an execution. "No!" Selina shrieked, her voice cracking with disbelief and terror. That's not. She's Ariana, the waitress, the stain. I had her fired. I just saw her. She's trash. Emmy finally turned her gaze to Selena. It was not the gaze of a humble waitress. It was the cold, assessing gaze of an owner. You're mistaken, Emmy said, her voice echoing in the vast room. You didn't have me fired. Mr. Dubois fired me. And since Vanguard Equity acquired the holding company that owns the Crimson Scepter 3 days ago, he was technically my employee. She gestured towards a large screen on the wall, a screen the Coingtons hadn't even noticed. It flickered to life. It was the live feed of the 44th floor conference room. It showed the entire Crimson Scepter staff, Javier, Chloe, and a horrified-looking Mr. Dubois. They were all staring at the screen, watching the boardroom meeting live. Mr. Dubois! Selena shrieked, pointing wildly at the screen. On the 44th floor, Dubois saw her. He saw Emmy. He stumbled backward, his face ashen. As of 2:30 p.m. Emmy continued, her voice amplified in both rooms. Mr. Dubois's employment has been terminated, effective immediately, for gross mismanagement and creating a hostile work environment. Dubois collapsed into a chair, clutching his head in his hands. Emmy turned back to the Coingtons, her expression unwavering. Now let's talk about your future. I don't understand, Selena stammered, sinking slowly back into her chair. You were a waitress. I was conducting due diligence, Miss Coington, Emmy said, her voice laced with ice. I do it for all my hospitality acquisitions. I find it clarifying. It helps me understand the ground floor of the business, who is an asset and who is a liability. She looked pointedly at Selena, who flinched as if she had been physically struck. Now to business, Emmy said, turning her attention to Martin. Your tower. Martin was a broken man. The arrogance was completely gone, replaced by abject fear. He was just a terrified old man in an expensive suit. Vance, please. My daughter, she's spirited. She doesn't mean... Your daughter, Emmy interrupted, her voice cutting through his rambling, is the least of your problems. Your accounting, however, is a complete disaster. Ben Shaw stood. Mr. Coington, our audit found you are currently $280 million in default on your bridge loans. The Covington Tower project is insolvent. The Covington Grand Hotel is leveraged at 110% of its value. You are, to use the technical term, bankrupt. But the meeting, the $200 million, Martin pleaded, his voice trembling. The $200 million injection you asked for, Emmy said, her voice flat, is no longer on the table. We are not interested in partnering with you. Then what? You're going to ruin us? Selena whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. You're going to take our house? My followers, my life? Your life, Emmy said, her voice dangerously quiet, sending a shiver down Selena's spine. You mean the life you live by humiliating people, by filming them in their worst moments, by throwing water in a woman's face because it makes you feel powerful? That life? Selena started to sob, thick, ugly tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know who you were. That? Emmy said, standing up and walking towards the window, looking down at the sprawling city below, is the entire problem. You shouldn't have to know who I am. She was silent for a moment, lost in thought. You were cruel, Selena. Not because I was important, but because you believed I wasn't. You step on people you think are beneath you. You never know, she mused, turning back to face them. If the person you're stepping on is the one holding up the very floor you're standing on. She paused, letting her words sink in. As of 9 a.m. this morning, Vanguard Equity purchased the $150 million senior note on the Covington Grand Hotel from Ashwood Capital. We now hold your debt. We are the bank and your payment is due. Martin put his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. It's over. It's all over. No, Emmy said, her voice sharp, cutting through his despair. Not quite. I'm not a destroyer, Mr. Coington. I'm a builder, but I'm restructuring. She proceeded to lay out the terms, and they were brutal. Vanguard Equity will assume 90% controlling interest in the new Vanguard Tower, effective immediately. We will finance its completion. We will manage its operations. Your name will be removed from the project. Martin gasped, his face contorted with anguish. You will retain 10%, Emmy continued, her voice unwavering. Not you personally. A trust. A trust for your family. It's more than you deserve. She paused, her eyes narrowing. Your personal assets will be liquidated to cover your immediate debts. You, Martin, will be removed from the board. You will be given a small consulting fee for 1 year to ensure a smooth transition. And then you're retired. Martin was silent, completely stunned. He was ruined, but he wasn't destitute. He was, in a strange way, saved. He nodded slowly, unable to speak. We accept, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Thank you, Miss Vance. I'm not finished, Emmy said, turning her icy gaze to the still sobbing socialite. There's the matter of you. Selina was no longer a person. She was a hollowed-out shell, a porcelain doll shattered on a marble floor. The words, your boss, echoed in the vast, silent boardroom, ricocheting off the glass and steel, each repetition striking her with the force of a physical blow. She was on her knees, her custom-designed Balenciaga suit pooling around her, her $200 gel manicure digging into her own palms as she clenched her fists in desperation. No, she whispered, the word a dry, pathetic rasp. No, you can't. She looked up, her eyes wide with a terror so profound it had burned past tears, fixed on Emmy. Please, Miss Vance. Emmy, I'll do anything. I'll give you my trust fund. I'll give you my car, my followers. I have 4 million followers on Instagram. I'll tell them. You're brilliant. I'll promote Vanguard. I'll say this was all a performance, a test, please. She was bargaining, desperately throwing everything she had ever valued onto the table. My bracelet. Take it. She fumbled with the clasp of her Cartier love bracelet, the one her father had given her, the one she'd flashed in hundreds of photos. It's $50,000. Take it. Take my watch. Just don't do this. Don't make me that. Martin Coington, who had been sitting as if his spine had been pulverized, finally spoke. His voice was a raspy, broken thing. Miss Vance, Emmy, please. He stood, his legs shaking uncontrollably. She's my daughter. She's just a child. She's been spoiled. Terribly spoiled. It's my fault. It's all my fault. Punish me. Take the 10%. Take everything. Leave us with nothing. But her, she's not built for this. It will destroy her. Please, I am begging you. Don't do this to my child. Emmy let the desperate pleas hang in the air, the silence amplifying their intensity. She looked at Martin, her face unreadable, giving away none of her thoughts. Built for what, Mr. Coington? She asked, her voice soft, almost gentle, which made it all the more terrifying. Built for work, for consequences, for life? You built a billion-dollar empire, but you failed to build a human being. You raised a predator, and you are both responsible, you for shielding her from the world and she for gleefully attacking it. She then turned her full, undivided attention to the weeping woman on the floor, her gaze unwavering. She took a step closer, her Louboutin heels clicking on the marble floor with terrifying finality. You want to pay me? Emmy crouched slightly, bringing herself closer to Selina's level, though the power imbalance was now an unbridgeable chasm. You think the damage you inflict, the humiliation you trade in, can be settled with a transaction? You think this is about money? She shook her head slowly, a slow, pitying motion that was more devastating than any scream. You said you were sorry. You said you didn't know who I was. She stood up, her movements fluid and graceful. That is the most honest and the most damning thing you have ever said. You are apologizing because the ant you stepped on turned out to be a dragon. You're not sorry for the act, Selena. You are sorry for the target. You're not sorry you filmed a waitress in her moment of humiliation. You're sorry you filmed me. You're not sorry you threw water in a woman's face. You're sorry you threw it in mine. Your apology? Emmy declared, her voice ringing with the clarity of a judge's gavel, is worthless. It's a currency you're trying to use to escape a bad situation. It's as hollow and fraudulent as the financials your father submitted to my office. It is therefore rejected. She paused, her expression hardening. I am not sending you to jail, Emmy continued, walking back towards her desk. That would be an escape. Prison is structured. You would still be Selena Coington, the fallen socialite. You'd have a new story, a new identity. You'd have notoriety. No, I am not interested in punishing you. I am interested in unmaking you. I am going to re-educate you. I am going to teach you in the most literal way possible the lesson you have refused to learn your entire life. I am giving you a job. A job? Selena hiccuped, a bizarre, hysterical flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. Like an internship at Vanguard? I'm good at marketing my brand. I can rebuild. Emmy's laugh was not a laugh. It was a cold, sharp puff of air, devoid of any warmth or humor. Your brand? You have no brand. You have no skills. You have no value. You are, as you so clearly put it just 2 hours ago, trash. You are a liability, and a liability must be processed. You are not qualified to speak to my clients. You are not qualified to write a memo. You are not even qualified to fold napkins. As you so helpfully pointed out, my own cuff was stained. She paused, her eyes narrowing. No, you will start at the only place that fits your current value, the absolute literal bottom. She pressed the intercom on her desk. James, please send in Mr. Fernandez. The side door to the boardroom opened, the one that connected to the conference center where the Crimson Scepter staff was still assembled. Javier walked in, his expression bewildered. He was no longer in his bartender's vest, but in his street clothes, a simple jacket and jeans. He looked confused, and then he saw Emmy. He looked at her, really looked at her. The suit, the hair, the desk, the sheer power radiating from her. His mind raced, finally connecting Ariana to the name on the building directory. Vanguard. Ariana. He breathed her name, his voice full of disbelief and awe. What is? Hello, Javier, Emmy said, her voice finally, for the first time, warming with genuine respect. Or I suppose Miss Vance is more appropriate now. Thank you for coming in. I apologize for the deception. I needed to see the truth of the Crimson Scepter. And I did. Javier was reeling, trying to process the impossible situation unfolding before him. I don't understand. The collection. Chloe's son. I called you. Chloe's son's medical bills for the next 5 years have been anonymously paid for by a Vanguard charity fund as of 1 hour ago, Emmy said simply. And your collection, the $600 you all pulled together for a fired coworker you barely knew? That told me everything I needed to know about you. While others were busy being liabilities, you were being an asset. She turned back to the Covingtons, her expression hardening once more. Martin, Selena, this is Javier Fernandez. He was the head bartender at the Scepter. As of my previous announcement to the staff, he is the new general manager of the restaurant, which will be rebranded and relaunched. Selena's face twisted in disgust, even through her terror. The bartender? You're making the bartender my boss? Emmy supplied, her voice going cold again, each word laced with steel. Javier is everything you are not. He's decent. He's hardworking. He notices other people's pain. While you were filming their humiliation, he was trying to help them. He is an asset. You are a liability, so he will be in charge and you will report to him. She paused, her gaze unwavering. Now, Emmy said, pulling a single sheet of paper from a drawer. Let's be very clear about your new life, Selena. The terms of your employment. She looked at Martin, her expression implacable. Your father's 10% stake in the Vanguard Tower? That's your leash. It's the last dollar your family will ever have. It's what pays for your father's retirement, his continued existence, and it is entirely 100% conditional on your performance. She looked at Selena, her eyes like chips of ice. Your start date is Monday. Your shift begins at 6:30 a.m. Not 6:31. Not 6:05, 6:30. You will not arrive in your Maserati. You will sell it. In fact, you will sell all your cars. You will take the subway, the 6 train from 68th Street. You will learn what it's like to be pressed against 100 other people, to smell their coffee and their sweat, to be invisible in a crowd. Truly invisible. Not look at me invisible. You will not be a waitress, Emmy continued, her voice a merciless monotone, devoid of any emotion. You don't have the poise. You don't have the humility. You don't have the people skills. She paused, her gaze intensifying. You will be assigned to the dish pit and kitchen prep. I want you to imagine this, Emmy said, leaning forward, her voice dropping to a low, almost hypnotic tone. Your hands, the ones with the $200 gel manicures, I want you to imagine them plunged into 140-degree industrial-strength sanitizing water, scrubbing coagulated béarnaise sauce and dried-on lipstick from 300 plates. I want you to feel the steam in your face, the constant, deafening roar of the machine, the smell of old food and wet garbage that will never, ever leave your clothes. She paused again, letting her words sink in, painting a vivid and horrifying picture. When you're not in the pit, you'll be in prep. You will not be creating. You will be processing. You will peel 50-pound bags of potatoes until your knuckles bleed. You will devein shrimp until your fingers are raw and smell of brine. You will cry, and the salt from your tears will sting the dozens of tiny cuts on your hands. And no one will care. They will tell you to work faster. You will clean the grease traps, Selena. Once a week, you will get on your hands and knees and scoop out the congealed, rancid fat that is the byproduct of the fine dining you love so much. You will smell it. It will get in your hair, and you will go home on that sick train smelling of it, and the other passengers will move away from you. You will be the contamination. Selena was making a small, choking sound, hyperventilating as the full horror of her situation crashed down upon her. Your uniform will be a pair of black, non-slip kitchen clogs, a short-sleeved cook's shirt, a heavy rubber apron, and yes, a hairnet. No makeup, no jewelry. Your nails will be cut to the quick. You will be a worker. You will refer to Javier as Manager Fernandez or Sir. You will refer to the line cooks as Chef. You will refer to the waitstaff, the Chloes of the world, as Ma'am and Sir. You will be the lowest thing in the building. You will be the stain. She paused, her gaze unwavering, relentless. You will do this, Emmy commanded, her voice leaving no room for argument. For 6 months, 40 hours a week. No sick days unless you have a doctor's note from a public clinic, not a private physician. If you are late once, your family loses 1% of its stake. If you are rude to a fellow employee, if you so much as roll your eyes at an order, you lose 5%. If you quit, if you film 1 second of this, if you post one cryptic, "Why is this happening to me?" message on your Instagram, you lose everything. The 10% stake is forfeit. Your father is on the street. Your family name is officially and permanently mud. Am I clear, Selena? A puddle of designer fabric and ruined makeup could only nod, her entire body shaking uncontrollably. Martin, Emmy said, turning her attention back to the broken man. You will not interfere. You will not call. You will not check in on her. You will let this happen. This is your only path to saving the last scrap of your name. This is her only path to becoming a person. Emmy turned to Javier, who had been watching this entire scene with a mix of righteous terror and stunned awe. Javier, Manager Fernandez, she said, her voice softening again, the respect evident in her tone. I am sorry to put this on you, but you are the only one I trust to be fair. She is your employee. You will treat her exactly as you would any other new hire in the dish pit. No better and no worse. She gets one warning, then she's your problem to fire, and you know the consequences if you do. Can you handle that? Javier looked at Selena, who was still weeping on the floor, her body racked with sobs. He looked at Emmy, the woman he tried to give rent money to who now owned the city. He thought of Chloe and all his other co-workers at the Crimson Scepter. He straightened his spine, his eyes hardening with a newfound resolve. The bartender was gone. The manager was here. "Yes, Miss Vance," he said, his voice firm and unwavering. "I can." "Good," Emmy said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. "Then your new employee will be ready on Monday. You can escort the Covingtons to the elevator. I believe our meeting is over." Emmy gathered her papers into a leather folio, her movements crisp, efficient, and finished. She walked to the door, past the broken family, barely sparing them a glance. She paused, her hand on the handle, and looked back one last time. "Oh, and Selena." Selena looked up, her face a streaked, ruined mess. Yes, a small piece of advice. From one member of the help to another," Emmy said, a hint of amusement flickering in her eyes. "When you're cleaning the front-of-house glass after service, I prefer Windex on the glass. It leaves a streak-free shine. You wouldn't want to contaminate the guest experience, would you?" Emmy Vance smiled just once. A smile of pure, finished business, and then she was gone. The click, click, click of her heels faded down the marble hall, leaving Selena Covington alone on the floor at the feet of her new boss. In the end, Selena Covington learned that life's cruelest twist isn't losing your money. It's being forced to earn it. She traded her Louboutins for non-slip kitchen clogs and her designer dresses for a bleach-stained apron. The question is, did she learn her lesson? Karma, as we've seen, doesn't always come in the form you expect. Sometimes it comes in a Tom Ford suit, holding the deed to your entire life. What did you think of Emmy's ultimate revenge? Was it justice or was it just business? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you love the story of karma and consequences, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and please subscribe to the channel for more stories where the entitled finally get what they deserve. Enough of